It's not there. Huh? 27th of September. So it's a ways off. Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mishnapad, Paramahansa, Parivajagacharya, Ashtotirtha, Shri Srimad, Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad, Paramahansa, Parivajagacharya, Ashtotirtha, Shri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnavindra ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay, is it 17? Yeah. Yes. We're starting the different austerities now. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 7th day of June 2023 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 17, entitled The Divisions of Faith, text 17, at the top of 652, page 652. Shraddhaya, Paraya, Taptam, Tapas, Tat, Trivadhang Narai, Apalakang Shibir, Yuktai, Satvikam, Parichakshate. Okay. Shraddhaya Paraya Taptam, Tapastat Trivadhang Narai, Apalakang Shibir Yuktai, Satvikam Parichakshate. Shraddhaya Paraya Taptam, Tapastat Trivadhang Narai, Apalakang Shibir Yuktai, Satvikam Parichakshate. Shraddhaya Paraya Taptam, Tapastat Trivadhang Narai, Apalakang Shibir Yuktai, Satvikam Parichakshate. Ishtadev. Shraddhaya Paraya Taptam, Tapastat Trivadhang Narai, Apalakang Shibir Yuktai, Satvikam Parichakshate. Yoga Kishore? Not yet? Not yet. Okay. Brajamandala. Shraddhaya Paraya Taptam, Tapastat Trivadhang Narai, Apalakang Shibir Yuktai, Satvikam Parichakshate. Jalatala. Do you want to share? Shraddhaya Paraya Taptam, Tapastat Trivadhang Narai, Apalakang Shibir Yuktai, Satvikam Parichakshate. Shraddhaya Paraya Taptam, Tapastat Trivadhang Narai, Apalakang Shibir Yuktai, Satvikam Parichakshate. Shraddhaya Paraya Taptam, Tapastat Trivadhang Narai, Apalakang Shibir Yuktai, Satvikam Parichakshate. Anyone online? Okay. Shraddhaya, with faith, Paraya, transcendental, Taptam, executed, Tapaha, austerity, Tat, that, Trivadhang, of three kinds, Narai, by men, Apala, Akangshibihi, who are without desires for fruits, Yuktai, engaged, Satvikam, in the mode of goodness, Parichakshate, is called. This threefold austerity, performed with transcendental faith by men not expecting material benefits but engaged only for the sake of the Supreme, is called austerity in goodness. And I'm just going to read the translations for 14, 15, and 16. Austerity of the body in the mode of goodness consists in worship of the Supreme Lord, the Brahmans, the spiritual master, and superiors like the father and mother, and in cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and nonviolence. Austerity of speech consists in speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating to others, and also in regularly reciting Vedic literature. And satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, self-control, and purification of one's existence are the austerities of the mind. And now we're going to hear about austerity in the mode of passion. Text 18. Satkaramana pujartam tapodambhena chaivayat kriyate tadiha proktam rajasang charam adhruvam. Penance performed, Prabhupada used the word penance and austerity as synonyms. Penance performed out of pride and for the sake of gaining respect, honor, and worship is said to be in the mode of passion. It is neither stable nor permanent. Purport. Sometimes penance and austerity are executed to attract people and receive honor, respect, and worship from others. Persons in the mode of passion arrange to be worshipped by subordinates and let them wash their feet and offer riches. Such arrangements, artificially made by the performance of penances, are considered to be in the mode of passion. The results are temporary, they can be continued for some time, but they are not permanent. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So this is the perfect example of what I keep pointing out Damba is all about. It's a show of austerity, respectability, whatever it is that can gain you some respect, contributions. This is the reason for it, and that's what the mode of passion is all about. It's about satisfying one's desire for subtle sense gratification, such as worship, gross sense gratification that can be bought with money. And austerity is often a way to do that. Just like now, it's hard to say, the political season is starting. It's actually all the time now. But that's a perfect example. It's really a form of puja, to go and have a rally and have people chant your name, and of course give donations, and then offer a vote. And it's an austerity to do that, to go, to spend all that time and money and energy. But the result can be great. I'll be elected and then I can really cash in, It's all damba. It's all hypocritical, showy things that you have that you really don't have. And that's why it said in the mode of passion, Satkara mana pujatam, for the sake of getting people showing respect to you, giving honor and worship. Now, what's the attitude that devotees are meant to have in Lord Chaitanya's line? Trinada pisuri chena, tarora pisahishnana, amanina manadena kirtani eksadahari. It's hard to imagine something more 180 degrees different from this idea of puja. The first thing is to be more humble than a blade of grass. It's more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, not desiring honor from others, but always ready to give honor to everybody else. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name constantly. So Krishna consciousness is 180 degrees different from this mode of passion. It's exactly, the success is based on one's actual genuine humility and feeling of helplessness before the Lord, so that you call out constantly for Him to protect you, and then everything happens from there. And so that's the attitude that is said to be most essential. We're enjoined to string that verse around our neck for constant remembrance, so that we can constantly chant Hare Krishna. So, but you can see how when impurities enter in, even bhakti yoga can be practiced for material gain. It can be practiced for material gain. It can look, this person is so austere, just like, Hiranyakashipu, of course he wasn't practicing bhakti, but his method, his reason, his motive for practicing austerity, which is what this is all about, was wholly and solely selfish. His very name, Hiranya Kashipu, he's after gold and soft bedding, and Prabhupada says the bed companion. That's the genuine motivation, and that can take you, as we learned in the previous chapter, straight to hellish life, a hellish condition. So the same austerity, and so oftentimes the austerities that are performed in Rajas and Tamas are more extreme and more inconceivable than austerities in bhakti. Because austerities in bhakti are meant for purification. It's not meant for building up your material strength and all of the different things, And so that purification really depends on if you're following, again, this is the theme here, this whole section, the Shastra. The Shastras that are, the essence of the Shastras given is the Vedanta Sutra, the Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and in the line, those were, and especially, in our line, the Chaitanya Charitamrita and all these things. So what is the austerity? As I pointed out, you got to get up early. I don't know if I can do it. But the thing is, you'll do it, if there's like a few $1,000s to be gotten, if you just get up an hour early, all right, yeah, I'll get up. The point is, if your motive is just to cultivate goodness and to advance in devotional service, you have to be inspired. You have to be fortunate enough to be in a situation where you can appreciate the value of purification and so forth. And so that is often, that's the Lord's mercy. He's wanting to give us that association, and He comes in order to do that, to reestablish Dharma, protect the devotees, annihilate the demons. So these are all very important, because we can recognize, I can see this is not where I want to go. Don't want to associate with this group that is, extreme sports. I remember reading this was years ago, reading an account, going down the ski slope in in a surfboard or something. It was some ridiculous thing. And the guy went right off, and then he got buried in a snowbank. And the poor kid, I don't think he couldn't be over 20 years old. Where is he? We don't know, The poor guy died in that snowbank. And the whole, and this happens all the time. There was another story more recently about bungee jumping. Why would someone want to do bungee jumping? The thrill, right, of death-defying thrill, right? So the picture, the bungee broke and it smashed down to the ground, So this is such a tragic waste of human life. There is place for austerities, but the austerities need to be guided by the Shastra and the Guru, and the austerities are meant to purify you so that you can be more enthusiastic and appreciative in practicing devotional life. And the amazing thing is, who could be more austere than the 6 Goswamis, right? They're the ideal. There's even the verse, was it? Tyaktva turna mashesh manda pating shening sada tuchabat budba dina ganeshiko kadunaya kopina kantashito gopi babada samartabda hari kallo magno mahu vande rupa sanatano rigoshi jiva gopalaka. That they gave up a life of opulence, 3 of them especially, Sanatan, Rupa, and Raghunath Das Goswami. Raghunath Das was scheduled to be what we call like a billionaire heir. There was his uncle and his father were extremely wealthy. And he was the only son. He had everything material you could ask for. He wasn't interested. He was inspired by Lord Chaitanya. He got attracted. He kept running away from home. They got him married to a wife like the goddess of fortune. Very chaste and beautiful, and he was fixed. And then he became the exemplar of austerity. Among the incredibly austere 6 Goswamis, he was the most austere. When he retired, he stayed with Lord Chaitanya in Jagannath Puri until the Lord left. And when the Lord left, he couldn't take it anymore. He wanted to go to Vrindavan, jump off Govardhan Hill, and commit suicide. So that's where he went. But when he arrived there was Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami and Gopal Bhatta, all the Goswamis, and they encouraged him, no. You witnessed the Lord's last 12 years of incredible exhibition of devotion at the highest level of prema bhakti, separation from Radha from Krishna. So we need to hear that. So you can't commit suicide, So they convinced him. And 3 hours a day, he would, on Radha Kund, and they would meet, and then he would recount the Lord's, and this is what has entered into the Chaitanya Charitamrita, because Krishna Das Kaviraj was there, and he was listening, And so from Raghunath Das's accounts and Srup Damodar's notes, this is what the substance of the Chaitanya Charitamrita came. So the amazing thing is, okay, so what was the standard? They would Nidahara Harakari Vijatodas, they conquered over sleep and eating and recreation. Recreation is sex, no sex. And no eating, practically no eating. They would take, once a day, whatever they could beg, a few, a handful of upma or something, whatever they could find. Sleeping, they didn't even have their own tree. Okay, this is my tree, I'm not saying. No, they would wander around from a different tree in Vrindavan with loincloth on. Now, Rupa and Sanatan was the prime minister of Nawab Hussain Shah, who was the ruler, and Rupa was the finance minister. Both plugged into the government completely, and plenty of wealth and influence and everything. But when Lord Chaitanya came and they were inspired, that's where they surrendered, and Namo Mahabala Nyaya, that verse came from there. They said, oh, you are the most munificent avatar of Krishna, you're giving prema out freely, and they surrendered, and he told them to go to Vrindavan. And they quit. Rupa Goswami was able to quit. He cashed out. He had a whole boat full of gold. Can you imagine what that would be worth today? Billions, And he dutifully gave, I think, half of it to the Brahmins and Vaishnavas, a quarter of it to his relatives. His Prabhupada says they expect something. And then the other quarter for emergencies. Just see the culture. He put it into charge of a very responsible grocer. Really? You take charge of these $10 million, and here's a grocer. And he did. And then it became in handy because Sanatana used it to bribe the jailer and let him out of the jail. He was arrested. He was so valuable that the king didn't want him to retire. Anyway, it's a wonderful account. And these are austerities, mode of pure goodness. They perform plenty of austerities. But the wonderful thing is in bhakti that as you perform these austerities, they're not austerities anymore. They're ways in which you express your love for Krishna. And so the pleasure, the transcendental pleasure that's coming from them makes it, you don't want to stop. It's not like, boy, how long do I have to do this? Another couple of weeks and then that's it. No more fasting for me. No, it's not like that. So that's, we're hearing now, not those kind of austerities, but those which are motivated by personal desire. Okay, so any questions on text 18? So we get one verse describing the penance in the mode of passion, and another verse, austerity in the mode of ignorance. Whereas we had three describing penance in the mode of goodness. Okay, mudha grahen atmano yat pidya kriyate tapaha padasyot sadhanartam va tattam samudaditam. Penance, austerity, performed out of foolishness with self-torture or to destroy or injure others is said to be in the mode of ignorance. This is the tantra type thing I mentioned in previous classes. Purport: there are instances of foolish penance undertaken by demons like Hiranyakashipu, who performed austere penances to become immortal and kill the demigods. He prayed to Brahma for such things, but ultimately he was killed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To undergo penances for something which is impossible is certainly in the mode of ignorance. Now, one word about this penance. Penance, is related to the word repentant. The last thing the demons are repentant. So, you know what I'm saying? You don't know what I'm saying? Yeah. Penance is, if you look it up, which I did recently, it's often prescribed by some official in the church, in Catholic church or something, isn't it? And then you go, isn't it? And it's prescribed for some sin that you did, and then you'll get absolution like that, you know. So you have to be repentant to perform penance. But these demons are not repentant. That's the last thing the demons are. But Prabhupada would use that word interchangeably. So that's. So you can see this is when everything depends. The whole you know, our whole discipline and everything depends on your motive, on your impetus. Why are you doing something? If it's material in any way, even the mode of goodness, it's still binding. It keeps you to this material world. You know, some people in this country, you know, in this city, would never dream of, you know, spending all night at some club and getting drunk and, you know, getting. No. We never do like that. You know, they may be teetotalers, but they go out in the country. They, you know, everything's mode of goodness, and we reflect on the thing. We write some poetry. Who knows what it is? But it's still material. And as long as you're in the material sphere, maybe in mode of goodness, remember what Krishna says in the 14th chapter. Sometimes the mode of goodness is ascendant, and sometimes the mode of passion, sometimes the mode of ignorance. There's no pure goodness in the material world. It's all tinged with passion and ignorance. And so you're not protected. Now, if you're in that mode of goodness, and you come in touch with a devotee, then you're more likely to be receptive, interested. So there's a value in that. But that presence of a devotee, a sincere devotee, who is trying to help you by giving you knowledge, giving you a book, inviting you to the temple, come to the lounge, whatever it may be, prasadam, that's the value. Otherwise, you'll be in the mode of goodness today, in the mode of passion tomorrow, you know, and it's not good enough. So, but kind of being in the mode of goodness is something that devotees practice. The cleanliness, the regularity, eating sattvic food, that's been mentioned here. That's important so that we can remain fixed in devotional service. But it's not an end in itself. That's the idea. We don't take happiness in just, you know, wandering in the forest, you know. Now there can be a festival, you know, where devotees are all over, they're in the forest and chanting, you know, that's one thing. Taking a little retreat, but there's a discipline there. You're not just enjoying, you know, nature. You're seeing nature as part of God, and you're chanting, and you may be reading and, you know, memorizing verses. So that's the thing. And but Krishna's, you know, laying it out very succinctly here, how we can recognize, you know, because these principles, just to reiterate, the principle of austerity, or sacrifice, austerity, and charity are part of what it means to be civilized, you know, to human being. But why you perform them and how you perform them makes all the difference in the world. And he will say in the 18th chapter, the perfection of renunciation, he begins with this description of what transcendental jnana yagyan tapa are, not dana yagyan tapa, charity and penance and austerity and sacrifice are. So this is part of our sadhana, not for in and of itself, but because they help us to purify our existence and advance in devotional service. All right, one more, charity. So what is this? A verse on charity in the mode of passion, I think. No? Oh, no, goodness first. Datavyam iti yandanam diyate nupakarine deshe kale cha patre cha taddanam satvikam smritam. Charity given out of duty, without expectation of return, at the proper time and place, and to a worthy person, is considered to be in the mode of goodness. Purport. In the Vedic literature, charity given to a person engaged in spiritual activities is recommended. There is no recommendation for giving charity indiscriminately. Spiritual perfection is always a consideration. Therefore, charity is recommended to be given at a place of pilgrimage and at lunar or solar eclipses or at the end of the month or to a qualified Brahmin or a Vaishnav devotee or in temples. Such charities should be given without any consideration of return. Charity to the poor is sometimes given out of compassion, but if a poor man is not worth giving charity to, then there is no spiritual advancement. In other words, indiscriminate charity is not recommended in the Vedic literature. So you can say, on Sunday we had an example of charity for the greatest purpose, opening a temple to Lord Nrsingadev. And so that, and this is part of our whole culture. That's what the Hundi is all about. In one sense, this is how people can participate and give some of your hard-earned money for spreading Krishna consciousness, serving the deities, and it's all very auspicious. The work that you engaged in to make that money then becomes devotional service. So that's why the idea of karma yoga. Karma yoga means that you work very hard, and then of course you need something maintained, but whatever you have that's discretionary spending, you can give to the temple, or sponsor some books for distribution. You can imagine how many points you get for that. It's wonderful. Marcy, I know you're out there. She's been attending class for years. And the pandemic, she started attending it online. She's been doing it ever since. I'm hoping you're there. But she gives, she sponsors books. She buys a box of books and she'll give them out, to people out there. This is all very, very auspicious activity. Any time that our motive for doing something is for helping others to become Krishna conscious, there's nothing that pleases Krishna more, as he says explicitly in the 18th chapter. Nobody is more dear to me than those who are helping others to become Krishna conscious. So that's a sacrifice, but it comes back. You can't even calculate the return on investment. Whereas if you're just giving to the poor, that's okay. But what are they going to do with it? They may spend it on some liquor or this and that. So it's not the best. It's not the best. So charity should be given, and we understand it's defined here. But actually, we go on. Tattu pratupakaratam palamuddishya va punaha diyate cha parikrishtam taddanam rajasang smritam. But charity performed with the expectation of some return, or with a desire for fruitive results, or in a grudging mood, is said to be charity in the mode of passion. Purport: charity is sometimes performed for elevation to the heavenly kingdom, and sometimes with great trouble and with repentance afterwards. Why have I spent so much money in this way? Charity is also sometimes given under some obligation at the request of a superior. These kinds of charity are said to be given in the mode of passion. There are many charitable foundations which offer their gifts to institutions where sense gratification goes on. Such charities are not recommended in the Vedic scripture. Only charity in the mode of goodness is recommended. And I was just thinking something. I don't know the Bible very well, but isn't there somewhere that you should try to give anonymously? Isn't there something like that? Right? Yeah. But I mean, that's just the opposite of flaunting it. I'm so charitable. That's part of your return, to be like that. So, giving anonymously is, especially, drop something in there. There's no indication, but it's going to the right, result to help spread Krishna consciousness or worship the deity. So, it's very auspicious. Okay, and now mode of ignorance. Adesha kale yadanam apatrebhyas diyate asatkutam avagyatam tatamasamudaritam. And charity performed at an impure place at an improper time to unworthy persons or without proper attention and respect is said to be in the mode of ignorance. Purport: contributions for indulgence in intoxication and gambling are not encouraged here. That sort of contribution is in the mode of ignorance. Such charity is not beneficial, rather sinful persons are encouraged. Similarly, if a person gives charity to a suitable person, but without respect and without attention, that sort of charity is also said to be in the mode of darkness. So this is one point about attention. In the song that many of us sing every morning, the Guru song, Shri Guru Chadana Padma, Kebala Bhatakti Sadhana, Vando Mi Savadhana Mate. This is something that, we have this translation that is from the old original songbook that was revised with Prabhupada's approval in 1977 by one devotee who I knew, he knew Bengali and Sanskrit quite well. And really what that song says is, Shri Guru Chadana Padma, the lotus feet of the Guru, Kevala Bhakti Sadma, are the abode of pure devotion. In other words, bowing down, worshiping. Shri Guru Chadana Padma, Kevala Bhakti Sadma, Bando Mi Savadhana Mate. Bando means I bow down with great attention. With great attention. Meaning, what does it mean to bow down? And what is this mantra that I'm chanting? Namaham Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vasaya, what it may be, mantra to your own guru. There are so many bow down verses, wonderful verses that I can give you for Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda altar. I think the second verse of the whole CC. Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda. So when you hear the owl, it's a dual ending. Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahoditao Gaudo Dehe Pushpa Bandao Chitrao Shandao Tamonadao. Wonderful verse. I bow down Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda to Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya. Chaitanya Nityananda Sahoditao means they've arisen simultaneously, like the moon and the sun, rising sun. The moon and the sun don't rise simultaneously, but this is like a miracle. They both come. Over the horizon of Gauda to bestow benediction upon all, meaning they've come to deliver us, to give us pure love for Krishna, dancing and chanting like this. So, and there are wonderful obeisances to Lord Krishna. Of course, what is it? Hey Krishna, Karuna Sindho, Dina Bandho, Jagatpate, Gopesha, Gopika Kanta, Radha Kanta, Namostute. And Namostute. To Krishna, who is an ocean of mercy, who's the friend of the poor, who's the lover of all the gopis, especially Srimati Radharani, and the Lord of the Master of the Gopas. I bow down to him. So, knowing the meaning of those mantras as you bow down, and understanding the significance of the word Namaha. This I'm going to again explain if you haven't got it already. This came out in a book, Sri Krishna Lila Stava, which is written by Sanatana Goswami, a Sanskrit book, but the very simple verses, just like these Gita verses, And he summarizes Krishna's Vrindavan Leela all the way, and he includes the killing of Kamsa. And woven in to all these verses are bow downs, the obeisances. You killed Putana, I described it, and I bow down to you, like that. So then at the beginning of the book, Gopi Puranatadu, my old friend, wonderful godbrother who passed away 12 years ago, he took a passage from it probably was in the original by Sanatana Goswami, from the Padma Purana, I think, and he explained the word Namaha. What does it actually mean when we say Namostute, And it was fascinating because it describes different levels of bowing down. Like Namaste. I'm not going to explain again my experience on Indian Airlines, but Indian Airlines has some problems, But they have more flights to India than anywhere else, and they're cheaper. So I've flown them several times. And you walk on there, and there are what we used to call stewardesses. I think that they always had females. And they would say, Namaste, the famous Namaste, right? They're not bowing, they're just giving a little something like this, And that means, and I offer Namaste to you. Te means to you, So that's the first level. It's not really that sincere. It basically means hello, welcome, aboard. Then there's the bowing down, which we're all familiar with, where you're not really offering dandavats, which is full on, but you're bowing down like, the shape like that. And so that's one, but it could be very sincere, but the thing you should understand the meaning of what you're doing. But most, pure, I guess you say, sincere is the full bowing downs. The full. Now, the lady's not supposed to do it for some reason, but aside from that, the meaning is, as you're saying that mantra to the Guru or to Krishna or whoever it is, you're thinking of the meaning of the words, and you're understanding the significance of the word namaha. Namaha means not mine. This body is not mine. Please engage me in your service. I'm recognizing my subordination to you, and so forth. That's why bowing down is so important. That if you do it just one time, it's one of these things that if somehow or other you bow down in a temple to Krishna, then you get rid of so much karma, so much sin. You go around Tulsi, all your sins, even killing a Brahmin, you chant one name, you can't chant once. You can't chant once. Chanting means repeating. If you utter the name once, Hare Krishna, you eradicate more sins than you can commit in this lifetime. So this is the power of these practices. And if you know them, it's very enlivening. Some devotees, I remember when I went to Vrindavan, you go to, I was walking around Radhakund, and there's Babaji, which means totally renounced. He's just in a loincloth, and he's bowing down and circumambulating Radhakund by just bowing down. He has a stone. So he bows down, the stone goes like that, and he gets up again and carries the stone bow down like that. It takes hours just to go around like that. I never did it. I never tried to do it. I pretended I could do it. But the thing is, it's an essential part of Krishna consciousness, because it puts you, it gives you the proper position, situation. I'm an insignificant living entity floating along in this body, which could be destroyed at any moment. It's fragile, and I'm recognizing my complete dependence on the Lord and praying for inspiration that I can serve you and successfully lead my life in Krishna consciousness and go home back to Godhead. So this is the means of success in bhakti. It's just the opposite of out there, be a rugged go-getter, step on people's heads and get, I got at the top of this. It's just the more submissive you are and more humble and tolerant, as Lord Chaitanya says, Trinadapi Sunichena, then the more sincerely you can chant. This is a verse from Queen Kunti. Her prayers are really wonderful. Srila Prabhupada loved them. And she's saying, Janmaishaya Shuddha Shibir, Edamanabhalakpaman, Naibahati Badhadam Tvai, Tvama Kinchana Gosharam. For many years, 50 years, we had a translation that really wasn't accurate, it was misedited. Here's what the verse actually means. She's saying that, my dear Lord, you are easily attainable, but not by those who are progressively intoxicated with 4 categories of opulences. Janma, aristocratic birth, which is practically unknown today, but that's a big one in India. Good family. Aishwarya, wealth, obviously. Shuta, high education. And Shibir, physical beauty. People strive for these all the time, or they condemn themselves, why was I born ugly? So those are 4 opulences, and if you're really trying to maintain them and hanker for them, and you're intoxicated with them, then for such people, you're not so easily attained. Why? Because you're easily attained by chanting your holy name. But those who chant your holy name in that situation, being taken with their own beauty and etc., they can't call out your name in deep feeling. The deep feeling comes when you feel bereft, I really don't have any hope in this world except you, my Lord. You can please lift me up. You're the friend of the poor, Dina Bandho. So let me inspire me and help me to overcome all of these wicked desires and to serve you purely and all these different things. It's the foundation, and all of that can be part of our chanting of Hare Krishna. Why are we chanting? Prabhupada says, it's a call to the Lord, just like a child calling for his mother, helplessly calling for his mother. Because we're sitting in this body in Kali Yuga. Anything can happen at any time. It could be a tsunami in 5 seconds. Now there's a Mani Bandhani Prabhu was all excited because he's going to New York Rath Yatra. Only problem is the air in New York is worse than Delhi now. The worst air in the world is in New York City right now. They have all these fires burning in Canada, in eastern Canada, and they're blowing down.
My mom told me that. My mom in Tennessee.
In Tennessee?
Yeah, in Tennessee. She told me that she can't go outside.
Oh my God, yeah.
She had that now.
So, yeah, I mean, it's horrific. I mean, and Rath Yatra means chanting and dancing and breathing heavily, So, but hopefully there's 3 or 4 days till Sunday, and maybe if the wind blows up, it'll mitigate it. But you see,
Canada's still on fire, I think.
huh?
I think Canada's still on fire.
Oh, the fires are burning like crazy. It's just what the winds are doing, if it doesn't. So this is the material world, and what is our hope? Our hope is to stay connected to Krishna. That's what Krishna consciousness means. To stay connected to Krishna through the chanting, the service, the work, the prayers, and coming under the guidance of the Shastra and the acharyas, so that we can make progress in getting out of this world. Because we're going to get out of this body sooner or later. So the question is, what is our state of consciousness going to be when that happens? That's the whole test. Right at the beginning of the Bhagavatam, and the Bhagavatam kind of starts again on the second canto. I don't know if have you noticed that? The first canto is how did the book come to be written? No, there's some very important instructions in there. There's no question about it. But then at the end of the first cantos, Purkit Maharaj, he sits down on the bank of the Ganges, Yamuna, and all the great sages have gathered, and Shukadeva Goswami is there, and he asks this question. What should one hear? What should one think about? What should one do when death is imminent? Because death was imminent for him. He accepted it, the curse. So we don't know, when death is coming. So then Shukadeva Goswami, in a matter of like 6 or 8 verses, gives the essential instruction of the Bhagavatam. Okay, I'm not going to go through it. Basically, he's saying that, very good question. Such a good question. The answer to that question is beneficial for the questioner who gets it, and for the speaker, and for those who listen in. But there, Shrotavyadini Rajanya Ninang Santi Sahasrataha Apashyatam Atmatattvam Griheshu Grihamedinam. The Grihamedinams, materialistic householders, those who are blind to spiritual life, Apashyatam Atmatattvam, they have millions of things for hearing, isn't it? And it's increased exponentially by our wonderful internet culture, Anytime on the phone, you can be anywhere in the world, you can access anything. So all of that is going on, and this is the materialists, those who have no clue about spiritual life. They have a million things to hear about. So what is their nature? What is it got? So here's the summary of the life. Nidrihariyate naktam vivayena tabhavayak dibachatahiya rajan kutumba bodhanenava. So at nighttime, they waste too much time sleeping or having sex life. And during the day, they work like anything to try to get money. And then on the weekend, they didn't say that, but he said, kutumba bodhanenava, for the maintenance of the children and the big family, So that's a summary. And then they have for certain soldiers to protect them against the dangers of the material world. First, a strong body, work out. And then there's the children, the wife, the relatives, of course the bank balance, all these different things. But they're fallible soldiers. They really can't help you. And even though you see, okay, my grandfather also had that, but then he died, they didn't help him. And even though they see, they don't see. Pashyatam griheshu grihamedinam pashyan napi na pashyati. Although seeing, they don't see. It doesn't register. So therefore, he says, Maharaj Pariksit, without wasting any more time, he says, Tasmat bharata sarvatma bhagavan ishvaro hari shotavya kititavdisya smartavyak chechitabayam. If you want abhayam at the time of fearlessness, which means that you're completely calm, you're not the body, and you're thinking of Krishna. That's peacefulness. So this is what you have to do. He has 4 different designations for Krishna. Sarvatma, the Supreme Soul, Bhagavan, Supreme Personality of Godhead, Ishvara, the Supreme Control, and Hari, He who takes away all your suffering and gives you perfect bliss. What to do? Hear, Shrotavyak, Kirtitavyak, chant, Smartavyak, and remember, you see, at the time of death. And then he has I call it the Etavan verses. If you study Bhagavatam, periodically we get these verses beginning with Etavan, which means, now listen up, this verse is summarizing a whole argument, it's a whole knowledge. Etavad Sankhya Yoga Abhyam, Sudama Parinishtiya, Janmalabhak Parakpangsam. But you know the concept. Ante Narayana Smriti. The whole thing is to remember Narayan, Krishna, at the end point of this body. We're all coming to an end for all of us. So he says, whatever you do in practicing Sankhya or yoga or your Dharma within the Varnashram system, Parinishya, Janmalabha, your birth will be fruitful. Parak Pungsam, the supreme fruitfulness, is to remember Narayan at the end of life. So everything we do between now and that point, we're all going to meet that point, should be geared toward increasing our remembrance of Krishna. That's what it's all about. You know, hearing and chanting and working and remembering as far as possible, studying, memorize verses. It all helps us to remember Krishna. Because another famous verse I like, I'll just give you the English. Remember that our final breath may come at any time, no matter if we're old and sick or in our youthful prime. So young and old alike should chant the name incessantly. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. It's a good instruction. So that's an austerity, but it's an austerity in pure goodness, and it brings the greatest benediction. Going back to Godhead. Never come back again. All right, we have a little time for questions or comments. Otherwise, I'll regale you with another poem. Go ahead. Mike. Somehow we have to situate these mics better.
In the beginning of the class, you're talking about austerity and about Hiranyakashipu and what his name means.
Yes.
And to be very honest with you, I like gold. I like my bed. I like my soft bed. Are these things that are hindrances on our devotional service that we should give up? And kind of to add on to that is that our recent trip to India, some of these places that we stayed were very austere, and it almost made my mind like go back to like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to be home in my own bed and with my comforts. Is that also an impediment to think about those things?
Well, that's the problem.
Or do we need some of those things to help our devotional service? Do we need some of those comforts, those creature comforts?
I got to admit, some of my godbrothers, to this day, sannyasis, they'll sleep on the floor if they can. When you get older, it kind of gets more difficult to sleep on the floor. And I haven't been sleeping on the floor for quite a while. I slept on the floor, and it's not just on the floor. You have to, I went to REI, and I got an inflatable mattress, and even though if you slept on the floor, I'd be sleeping on that mattress. So the thing is, you mentioned one of the problems, because if you're put in an austere situation, then the attachment for those things can distract you from Krishna. So that's the problem. That's why undergoing voluntary austerities is important, but not to the degree that it's going to disturb your mind so much that something that you can do. And Prabhupada was a genius at that. When he came, the Ekadashi, right? Ekadashi, here's what Ekadashi means. I tried to practice it at one point. You don't eat from the night before Ekadashi through that night. I don't even think you're supposed to sleep that night either. And then through the whole day, you don't drink any water. And then through the night, you're chanting. They used to do, where do you go to chant all night without waking someone up? They used to go on the beach. Guru Krishna used to come. It was a few guys. They went onto the beach, in the middle of the beach, and do the quiet kirtan. No one bothered them, all night. And then the next morning, at that appropriate time, what's the time? Is it time yet? You break fast. And you don't break with a big meal, you break with something very simple, Yeah, you get sick. So, so I done it a few times. But it's very, and then what happens to your next day? You can hardly just plug right back into your service generally. You got to take a nap, like a 4-hour nap or whatever. So for the Westerners, it's difficult. Prabhupada knew that, so he gave us a different way of doing it. No, didn't even mention staying up all night. What to speak of? Maybe one day a year with the nirjal means no water. But that, I'm telling you, that's standard for every Ekadashi. And then no grains, no beans. Everyone knows that, has been around in this country for a while. No, you don't eat any grains, no any beans, nothing made from that. You have to be careful. And that's your Ekadashi. Light foodstuffs, you can maybe chant more rounds. Probably used to encourage to chant 25 rounds, which usually means always skip breakfast, just keep chanting, and then take at lunch. So that's doable. It's doable. It has to be doable, otherwise you become discouraged, And, famously, and then I'll end with this, is that when Prabhupada first started, he wanted to more or less have the outpost for the Gaudiya Math. So he had to compromise this. But then he said, okay, initiation, 64 rounds. And they had their beads that they got from the 5 and dime. Now it would be the dollar store. Big old beads like this. They had all strung their beads in the chanting. And I'm sure they were chanting 10 minutes around at the minimum. And so they came to Prabhupada, if you want us to do anything else, we won't be able to chant 64 rounds. Okay, 32. Prabhupada, it's not possible. 16, absolute minimum. That's how we came down to 16. And 16, sometimes you find, is not so easy. So Prabhupada saw what was feasible to do. But certain things he didn't compromise on, the 4 regs, And he said, if I didn't have that, I could have millions of followers, but who what's the use? Because that's what some of these bogus yogis had. They had so many thousand followers, but they weren't giving the genuine thing. And they themselves were in it for what we say, fame and money and so forth. And the Prabhupada never wavered, because he was plugged in. He was already getting the highest pleasure from preaching and following his Guru's order, even though so many difficulties. And he wasn't tempted or anything. He wasn't tempted. He was giving the genuine thing, and that's why the movement is still growing and going after 60 years. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. So we'll continue on Monday. And where are we? 23? Yeah, I think we did 22. Okay. So thank you all for attending. And sorry about, did I tell you about Bhakti Notes? I think I mentioned it too. Discovered by Jalatala. Wasn't my fault. I had it on the list.